David Purvis spoke with David Smoke about changing the Shop Farragut logo. As we discussed at the last meeting, this logo was actually approved by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. The FBA is now taking over the Shop Farragut program, and they are going to be running it. So the businesses apparently were very open to the Shop Farragut logo being changed. They just said, if you do it quick, because we're going to want to order new signs and we don't want to have the old logo on. So that is something that they may pursue, but that will be independent of the town with regards to that aspect of it. So that kind of gives you a summary of everything that we talked about, or that most of what we talked about at the last meeting with regards to that. So I don't know if you want to kind of go over that summary before we move on to the other stuff, or what's your pleasure?
The height restriction.
The height restriction remains the same as 6 feet.
Okay.
It will be the same as all of our ground signs are 6 feet height.
Ron, I think you must have been worried about one of those 2-foot by 10-foot tall signs.
I could see it happening. I really could.
Well, you know, it's funny you should say that, because that was one of the emails said, well, I might want a 2-foot by 10-foot sign. And when I read the email, I started laughing. I was like, yeah, that's what they were afraid of.
So they've asked for a minimum of 15%. If they want it larger, they may have larger.
Yes, it would not be a maximum. It would just be a minimum of 15%.
Well, I can live with what they came back with, except I would go with the white background. I really think that it just, you're going to, with such a cornucopia of color otherwise, I'm afraid that I think having that white background would, plus I think it'll make their logos pop off a little better, if you will. Otherwise, I can live with the other things that they brought up. Thanks for taking it back to them.
Along with Ron on the background, after thinking about it for a month, I probably have a little bit more flexibility with the background. I just would like to avoid the kind of fluorescent colors that have popped up occasionally, and I think those are the ones that and granted it has been more the exception than the norm. I'm somewhat reluctant to necessarily impose a background color, but it seems like that they're fairly open to the idea of just having a white background, and doesn't really seem to be an issue of just sticking with a white background. And if they want to use some colorful lettering, then I think we've been pretty flexible with that.
The emails that I read, like I said, it was kind of, that one wasn't as consistent, but the consistency was, if you go with something, go with white. That was the consistency. There was some concern about monotony, but you can break up the monotony with your design and your colors of your letters and things like that, and with your contrast and your own logos and that sort of thing. So, but definitely they said, if you prescribe something, please go with white.
Probably be easier for staff to enforce it if we had a background color than saying, well, any color is permissible except fluorescent colors, and then you get into a definition of fluorescent colors. Or
yeah, I don't have a picture of it because it just came out, but CVS has a little sign, itty-bitty sign, only about that big, that says flu shots available. And that's an example of where it is very effective. It is sitting at the corner of Smith Road and Kingston Pike. So when you're coming down Smith Road, you see it, and if you're eastbound on Kingston Pike, you see it. Not very visible westbound on Kingston Pike because of the size and the location. It's kind of busy at that intersection, but particularly when you're sitting at the traffic signal, it gives you plenty of opportunity to kind of glance around and see what's there. That's an example of a sign that is very small, and I couldn't tell you what the background is because of all the design that goes with the sign, but it's very effective. It's almost like it's got a blue background, but it doesn't really have a blue background. But I think with going with that, it does give more flexibility. That particular sign obviously wouldn't be okay anymore. It would have to be bigger because now we want the logo. So, I was just talking about the background.
Will the logo be all the time, or just shop?
They are asking that it be required on all special event signs. And this, of course, is just for commercial office ventures. It would not be required for churches and schools and that sort of thing.
That flu sign's going to probably be there for 2, 3, or 4 months.
No, won't be.
Just for 10 days?
Can't be there that long.
Well, they'll be giving them much longer than 10 days.
They can get up to, they get 4 per year, so they could get up to 40 days total.
Consecutive like that.
That is something. Do you want to say that they cannot be consecutive? And
We're inclined to quarterly.
certain businesses have certain times of the year that are more,
I don't know what I'm thinking. If they get,
yeah, I mean,
Right.
That's how they spend their, buck on their time limits.
if they're eligible for what, 40 days, is that right? If they're eligible,
40
if they
total.
want to run 40 days consecutively, I'm not opposed to that.
okay.
All the seasonal.
I didn't bring it up. Hadn't thought about it till we were just talking about it just now.
Every special event sign have to have the logo?
That is what the Farragut Business Alliance is, their recommendation to the Planning Commission and ultimately the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, that every special event sign have the Shop Farragut logo. The idea is to brand the program. They plan on expanding it, modifying it, and they talked about, from what Heather was talking about at the last time, doing like coupons with the, you know, like you have your Ingalls card or whatever, you scan and other things. And I think it's, at this point in time, it's not defined, but knowing that it will be expanded in a variety of ways. And by requiring the logo, they are hoping that it helps brand the program itself.
It shows some consistency in the signs as well. When you're driving down the road, it just oh, that's part of that Shop Farragut program.
Oh, they're in Farragut. You know, because there's signs elsewhere all the time. So it's like, if you see
Right.
that one and it has the Shop Farragut logo, you're going to say, because most people have no idea where our corporate limits are. So you see it, and it's like, oh, okay, that one is in Farragut. But I would like to go over the rest of the information, because we kind of went over it real briefly at our last Planning Commission meeting. And I really just wanted to ask, you've had a month to think about it. Is there anything that jumps out at you that you don't agree with, that you would like to see modified? The schools and churches, they can be located in any zoning district. And so this is one particular situation where this is based on a use and not on a zoning district. And from the standpoint of the churches and schools would still be allowed to have it, they would be allowed a 16 square foot, because there would be no Shop Farragut logo requirement, because obviously you don't go shopping at church, or not normally unless there's a consignment sale or something like that. But again, with the legibility requirements per the VRB and things like that. But just from your all's perspective, having gone through this, because I can draft an ordinance based on this, but if there was something that jumped out at you that you just have a problem with, just let me know so that we can iron that out before I draft the ordinance.
I'm sorry, we are restricting this to just banner material, or are we doing plywood as well, or? Since we're asking for grommets, we can't put that in plywood very easily.
Yes, actually we are prescripting banner material because of the problem that we have where people store their signs at the back, and they really are kind of around a whole lot more than they're sitting by their back door, so they're still, because they have a storage problem with them. Is everybody okay with that?
Specifically for that storage issue.
At the type of material the Business Alliance had in mind?
That's what David and I had talked about. We really didn't get into it a whole lot, but we were definitely talking about the, where you roll it up and it's easier to store, that it's not a problem, and that kind of thing. Is there a particular material that you would recommend, or?
Well, it comes in 8, 10, or 13 ounce, called scrim vinyl banner.
What's it called?
Scrim vinyl,
How do you spell that?
SCRIM.
SCRIM vinyl?
Yeah, the 8 ounce would probably be needs to
I
be at
don't
least
think we
10
need
ounce.
to prescribe an
Okay.
ounce, but
I could see
I can
somebody
say
getting by.
a banner material such as scrim vinyl, because
Yeah, at least keep
for
it
the
to
average
that.
person, that's not going to,
Okay,
at least for your,
yeah,
for
that'll
those of
work.
us that,
I just don't
in
want to see
business.
it get ragged. Let's put it that way.
well,
That was the only thing bugging me about a lesser weight.
I don't think any of us want to see, tattered and disheveled signs out there with the town's
Well,
name on it.
a grommet in an 8 ounce, the wind might rip it out. So that's
so do
what I
we
was
want
worried
to
about.
say a minimum of a 10 ounce?
I would say probably it needs to be at least 10 ounce and hemmed with grommet. That way the edges won't curl up and give you a nice neat look. Okay, so
Is that good with everybody? Okay.
I think economically it probably makes sense. It allows businesses to maybe change them out every year, every 2 years, as they want to put a different logo or different things they're trying to promote, or might even allow a business to have one time a year and one for Christmas. Because surely that's cheaper than a piece of plywood and having to put all the vinyl letters on. Wouldn't you think, Ron? I mean,
plywood's.
I know, but by the time
I
you
hate
apply the
plywood.
vinyl letters and
It's got to be easier to do the banner type
Well,
thing
see, the
than it
banner
is
you can
the-
just print it, digital print it, and go on your merry way.
you don't use the vinyl. You don't necessarily have to put the vinyl
Well, you
letters on.
can if you
Okay.
want to keep your costs down. You just do
print it.
vinyl that
Okay.
you apply to it, but printing's so easy. Just punch a design, punch a button. 5 minutes later, you're hemming it and on your way. So versus putting one letter on at a time like that. That's
Ruth, did you feel like you had a consensus on the background? Did you get
I
enough?
feel that
Okay.
you all kind of went with the white background, so I went with a 15%, minimum 15% logo area, white background, and then prescribing a banner material of a minimum 10 ounce hemmed with grommet scrim vinyl. Sound good? I know. Ron's a good teacher.
Yeah, there you go.
there's always a way around anything, though. You just have to. Ruth will discover that probably.
Oh, we discover that with everything.
Every day. So you'll have something for us next month.
Yes, I will have a ordinance for you all to act on next month.
No, I don't think we need to stipulate bungee cords or anything like that. They're just put
Let's not
string
go
on it and
into
be
more
happy.
detail than we have to. I think.
Yeah,
And surely
string. I can just see somebody doing something stupid.
I mean,
with some
zip
string.
ties would make the
I can
most
just see it
sense to
coming.
keep it nice and tight. I don't hate to dictate that.
Okay, so we're ready. You have enough information?
I'm good to go, so I will have that ready for the next meeting.
Okay. Also, for discussion purposes only tonight, item number 8, discussion of a request to amend the text of the Farragut zoning ordinance, Chapter 2, definitions to add medical spa to professional services definitions. Stacy M. Handel, applicant.
Some of you read the newspaper article about the board meeting last week where Ms. Handel came to the board to explain her use and what it was that she was requesting. That was starting to go through the process, you all being the first phase of that process. Noah's probably the most familiar with how our permitting process works, but when someone comes in with a business and they are in an existing tenant space, we generally, and if they have a plumbing permit that is required, we generally speaking issue that right off the bat when the plumber comes in, because they often have to cut right-of-way, and what that means is they have to cut concrete, which takes a while, and then we simultaneously are reviewing the plans so that they can get started. And what